The Westgate and Monash freeways will gain extra lanes in a desperate bid to ease Melbourne's traffic woes. The upgrades are the centrepiece of a long-awaited $10 billion transport blueprint.
In a rare departure from their chauffeur-driven mode of travel, the Premier and his ministers briefly left their limousines to ride the rails, unveiling the biggest transport spending spree in the state's history. Almost $3 billion alone will be spent boosting train services for an extra 4,000 passengers every day.
We recognise there is a challenge, we're facing up to it, and we've got solutions for the next 10 years and also a plan for the next 25 years.
But the transport blueprint's big-ticket item is roads, extra lanes for the Monash and Westgate freeways in a bid to cut peak hour travel times in half. Reversible peak hour lanes will be opened on the Westgate Bridge itself to improve traffic flow.
It's a bit like the curate's egg. There's a lot to like in this, but we're very disappointed that the completion of the ring road is not in there, the Frankston bypass is not in there.
Other highlights of the package include $750 million in rail safety improvements, $510 million for country services and free Sunday travel for seniors. Outer suburban bus services will also be boosted. But the package has failed to impress the Public Transport Users Association. It says most Melburnians will miss out on any service improvement, and it's called for the sacking of Transport Minister Peter Batchelor.
Two-thirds of Melbourne has missed out. This was the government's one big shot at fixing this problem.
And with the money to be spent over 10 years, the opposition says commuters will still be left waiting.
They'll know that their trains are just as likely to be late under this government next year and the year after and the year after that.
Gareth Borum, 10 News.
Well, now the hard sell begins and we're joined live by Premier Steve Bracks. Good evening, Mr Bracks.
Good evening, Mel. How are you?
Very well, other than today. Just looking at that report, when was the last time you travelled by public transport?
Well, today, of course, and previously I was involved in the commissioning of some of our new rail lines to provincial Victoria. So less frequently than I used to, of course. Before I was in this position, I used to be a regular traveller, but sometime recently I've travelled as well.
Yes, I asked that because you've obviously failed to impress the Public Transport Users Association.
Yeah, but that's interesting, Mel, because, look, that's their view, but the reality is that they put out a press release before they had the briefing, before they had the detail. They were putting out this detail. I would think it would be better if they discovered that 90% of Melbourne will have access to better services, and that would have helped them in their factual base for their comments.
Right, talk about services, earmarking more than $10 billion. You'll agree that's a lot of money. If you have that sort of money, why then do we need tolls?
Well, there is a need to increase public transport in the state, and of the $10.5 billion, Mel, I think about 65% of that is going on public transport. We know with high petrol prices that families are finding it very difficult currently. We want to give them options, and options including bus, train, tram, and the expansion in the middle and outer suburbs of buses is the biggest expansion we've ever seen, for example. So these options will be there, increased capacity so people can choose with their family budget to save money to use public transport, particularly for commuting to work, which can save an enormous amount.
All right, I see you've ruled out an alternative to the Westgate Freeway. Doesn't this make the western suburbs too reliant on that one road?
Well, we're going to unclog the Westgate Freeway and also the Monash Freeway so that effectively on peak periods we'll have a 50% reduction in travel times. That's an enormous reduction. And of course, just simply putting another bridge or a tunnel would actually move the bottleneck up closer to the city, do nothing. So we're freeing the whole lot up.
Okay.
Wider lanes, better service, better flow on the bridge itself.
I see no new rail lines to growth areas like South Morang, and we still don't have a rail link to the airport.
Well, rail link to the airport is not yet viable, but it could be in the future if the air commuter increases. But in relation, we've done the planning for future extensions, including new tracks in the west, improvements to the City Loop, new tracks at Dandenong, really increasing the capacity of the system to cope with extra volume, and that will allow for expansion in the future as well.
Well, as we said, you've got the big sell ahead of you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Mel. Appreciate it.
Premier Steve Bracks.